My name is Gregg Daniel. I'm the Artistic Director of Depth Theatre Ensemble. On behalf of our founding members, Verlin Jones, Yvonne Huff, and Jason Delane, we want to welcome our playwright from New York City, Kermit Fraizer.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I met Kermit about 35 some odd years
long
ago.
time ago.
At NYU. And when I first met you, we were training to be actors.
Right.
So when did I realized somewhere along the line that you were also a playwright, but when did that happen? How did that happen?
Actually, I didn't realize I was a playwright. I was a writer. I'd had a couple of fiction pieces published in magazines, literary magazines. And actually, I had the first one published when I was in acting school at NYU, when we were in NYU. Mm-hmm. But when we graduated,
we don't say the year.
We don't say when we graduated, but a year after we graduated, I was doing a show. I was in a show off Broadway, and I got an idea for a play. And we used to go up to Frank's workshop
up in Harlem
to hear new plays, and I would sometimes start working as a dramaturg. I would sort of give comments about plays. And once I was sitting in the audience, and I think I was listening to a new play by Richard Wesley, maybe, or someone like that, and I thought, I'm going to write a play. And that's when I wrote my first play.
That was in Kernel of Sanity.
That was Kernel of Sanity, and Kernel of Sanity the next year. Right. Was selected for the Eugene O'Neill National Playwrights Conference, and that gave me the idea, well, I guess I can be a serious playwright. I met Lloyd Richards, and I met a lot of other people, and I started continuing to write plays. And
I remember when your plays were mounted at Milwaukee Rep. I did a play of yours at
Yes, at Milwaukee Rep. Dinah Washington is Dead at Milwaukee
Rep.
Rep.
And
actually,
New
Milwaukee
Federal Theater also mounted your work.
Yeah, they did Kernel of Sanity. The Philadelphia Drama Guild has done a couple of plays at the Center Stage. Seattle Children's Theater, a lot of theaters around the country. Yeah.
And now you have a new play.
Now I have a new play
called Modern Minstrelsy.
Yes.
And you haven't heard this play. I mean, you've written this play, but it has an interesting genesis, because I remember when you started talking to me about it. What was the genesis of the play? I find it fascinating because it draws a parallel between the Irish experience in America and the African American experience. And I thought, whoa, that's kind of radical. And I know you also traveled. Well, you tell us.
Well, I had a good friend who was Irish American, and we were getting together in the mid-'90s at some time, talking about writing a nonfiction piece about sort of our parallel journeys in terms of Irish Americans and African Americans. That kind of fell apart after a year or so. I had a lot of notes and thoughts about what we were doing, and then the idea for the play came with trying to sort of draw on some of those experiences throughout. And then it was an incident that happened on Long Island, the shooting of a white teenager by a black man, and who was defending his son. And that was the impetus for writing as a way into the play. Mm-hmm. So then I made the black family, specifically African American, and I made rather than from the Caribbean or other places like that, and I made the white family Irish American, even though they weren't. And then I started traveling. I did a lot of reading at first about the histories of Irish immigrants and where they went and so on. And I discovered that Montserrat, which is a tiny island near Antigua, which most people don't visit too much anymore, is a really small island. But it was an island in the 18th, 17th century that was settled by a lot of Irish immigrants. The British sort of funneled their Irish Catholics to Montserrat because they didn't want them on St. Kitts, which was their island, and that was called St. Christopher then. And so I wanted to travel to Montserrat. I went to Montserrat. I went to Antigua. That's the way to get to Montserrat, and then you fly in this little four-seater plane across the ocean to Montserrat. And in Montserrat, a lot of the natives have Irish names, Irish last names. The Irish were the ones who were the plantation owners and the slave owners. And it's the only country, I think, still outside of Ireland where St. Patrick's Day is a national holiday.
Wow.
And so I visited there, and then I wanted to go to Africa because I'd never been to Africa. So I went to Senegal. I went to Senegal because I wanted to go to Gorée Island and stand at the door of no return, which of course is.
And this was all done on a sabbatical.
This is all
part of the play.
Yeah, I had a year off. I teach full time at Delphi University, and I took a whole year off to to work on the piece and to do other things. But I traveled for about 3 months, going from the Antigua and Montserrat. Then I went to Senegal, and then I went to Ireland because I wanted to go to Ireland and particularly go to Cork and Cobh Harbor, which is where the Irish quote unquote coffin ships were launched, when they shipped the Irish either down to the Caribbean or across to America. And then I had a couple of residencies, one in Italy, and I started working on the play.
And for the time, as you made the trips, were you writing during all the time, or you just waited until you just absorbed all this, and then when you had the residencies, you wrote?
I did nothing as a play. I was looking, taking notes. I had no structure for a play, no particular start for the play, except this incident, the killing, in my head. And it wasn't until after I had a chance to think about it and get away from it that I began to write the play. So, yeah.
And one of the incendiary things about the play, if I may say, is the shooting of this white teenager. I mean, talk about timely, because of Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, it was because Trayvon Martin was later. That happened, I think, maybe a few months after I'd gotten back from traveling around. And I finished this first draft of the play about 2 or 3 weeks last summer, before the Trayvon Martin decision was handed down. The Zedict, as some people.
Because you
Zimmerman
open it, you think immediately, oh, is this playwright making a spin on the fact that a white teenager is now?
Yeah, but it wasn't.
But I know.
But it became that. It became it became like a spin, even though that was not my idea at all. You know, that hadn't even happened.
Right.
It's not that it doesn't happen, though. I mean, that was just.
It's just a happy circumstance, right?
Yeah, it happens all the time. But
so you're going to be with us for a week
Yes.
in March to help shape the play, and just what do you hope to accomplish in that week with the work, the material?
I hope to really find the play, find the story. I mean, I have an idea in my head when I finish the first draft. Oh, this is the story. This is how it's going to go. But I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I don't. In a lot of ways, it's a mess because there's a lot of different things that are going on. And the other thing, of course, is that I have these two iconic figures in the play, which make it different from a conventional play.
Now, how did you come up with those guys? Not to give anything, but Nig and Jig.
Nig and Jig. Well,
and they're sort of along a minstrel.
Yeah.
Hence the title, Modern Minstrelsy.
I mean, jiggers were like, Irishmen who, the Irish are, well, first of all, the Irish are known for their dancing as much as African Americans are known for their dancing. And I've always known historically that many of the white minstrels in the middle part of the 19th century on were of Irish origin. And the one thing historically that some people know about is the classic dance-off in the 1840s in the 5-point section of New York, where Master Jabba and William Henry Lane and the Irish dancer did a dance-off, and the black dancer won. But so this connection between, and then the other thing that I knew from the research that my friend and I had done was that the Irish were called the niggers of the 19th. Those were the white people who were denigrated as much as black people were when they came over, and black people were sometimes called smoked Irish. So that's the connection that I was trying to mine, which is ongoing, as a kind of contentious relationship.
It's funny because most people think a playwright writes a play and he has a few drafts and it's done. But so I guess my next question is, how valuable is it having a resource like our company that created a program specifically to support playwrights?
Right. Well, you can't do a play without other artists. It can't happen, and you have to have. I have never heard the play outside of my reading it out loud to myself. So actors give you an opportunity to step back and really to see what's working and what's not working, and it's fundamentally important to the development of a play. I mean, that's in terms of being a playwright as opposed to being, like, I've had fiction published and nonfiction published, and that's a relationship between you and an editor or you and a publisher or whatever. You have that kind of dialogue. But as a playwright, you have to be willing to work with other artists as opposed to another kind of writer. And so it's really fundamentally important that you have a theater company, a group of actors, and a director and dramaturg, and eventually the other artists, the scenic designers and the lighting designers. They bring you things that you don't even know are there.
Right.
It's also scary because they tell you things that you don't want to hear. But that's a part of the process.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
this doesn't work. Oh my God, why did I do that? It can be very nerve-wracking.
It can be. And I don't mean to denigrate playwrights, but I've directed plays where the playwright thought the play was about one thing.
Right.
And actually, it's diametrically
And
different.
I've discovered that a couple of times.
Where the play was really about, and it's a wonderful door to have open,
Mm-hmm.
but suddenly someone else is telling you, oh, you think the play's about the father-son relationship?
Yeah.
No, you know what? It really was about more of a, and suddenly that opens a door
Yeah.
wide, and you can go in that direction.
Right. Collaboration is really key. It's really important.
Well, the workshop is March 17th through the 23rd
Yeah.
here in Los Angeles, and we're pleased to have you with us.
Well, I'm excited about being here. I'm really excited about hearing this play for the first time. And I'm also excited about the opportunity really to work on the play with experienced actors and other artists as a way of discovering what it is that I have. I mean, what you want ultimately is to see the play in space. You know, plays are written to be performed.
Mm-hmm.
It's great if they're published eventually, but they're written to be performed.
Right. That's what
I mean,
makes them
you
different than any
can't-
other art
The
form.
audience completes it. That's why theater is, which is Greek for seeing space. That's why the play is written. And
And I'm curious, because you mentioned the O'Neill, obviously the Venerable O'Neill
Mm-hmm.
Center, but in your experience in the last decade or more, how is it harder to find places to do this? Harder to find theater companies that are willing to, or have a component or programming where the playwright is sort of dominant?
I don't. Yeah.
Have they been disappearing, or have they been multiplying? Or
I don't think that they're necessarily been disappearing, but it's harder to get if you don't have a relationship with the theater. It's harder to get a relationship with the theater because the theater commits itself to certain X number of writers, and they kind of fill up the space. And to get in is difficult. But then when you're on the other side, it's great when you have a relationship with a theater, and with artists that you've worked with before. Then you have like a home base.
right, and they're always looking for you. Like
They're
John,
always looking for you. Do you have a
right.
new thing? Do you have the
like
next
John
thing?
Ware at Lincoln Center, and
Yeah,
they're always looking for that.
And that's or like the relationship August had with Yale.
Yale and
you
Lloyd,
know,
right.
So that is the kind of thing that that's always really important. So I wouldn't say that there are fewer spaces. I would say economically it's harder to get. You know, the age-old the cliche, which was written about a few years ago. In the Village Voice about a playwright being workshopped to death. So you go from workshop to workshop to workshop, but no one commits
To mounting the play.
So you don't get a full production. So
You can be in like
it's
workshop hell
It's
after
like
a
being
while.
in workshop hell.
everyone's interested, but nobody wants to put the money behind it to mount it.
Right. And
what was the last mounted? I know you've had your plays published. The last mounted play you had, like full-on production.
Woody King did Colonel of Sanity finally at the New Federal Theater
In New York.
in New York, and that was very successful after a very long time of that play bouncing around.
I think
But
did I do the first reading of that play? Was it me or
it could have been you.
when I was a younger
That
man?
play has so many readings,
Yeah.
so many iterations, and finally that particular play actually is going to be published in April.
Right.
So it's really interesting to sort of see how that sort of play sort of comes around to sort of finally coming out there and being out there. But that was my last full production.
Well, we were riveted by Modern Minstrelsy because of the use of jig and nig, because of the relationship between the Irish and the African American, and we just want to see where it goes. I mean, we're not looking to do anything other than support you in the work and see and to aid you in finding that story.
Right.
Also, we haven't committed to mounting it. I mean, we don't have those pressures on us. It's just a
No,
week in a
right.
place to.
Well, it's different from that kind of relationship is different from, say, particularly a commission. Someone commissions
Right.
you, and then you go through the workshop. That's happened to me several times. And you go through the workshop process, and that everyone is on a train, sort of maybe 18 months to 2 years to get from concept to
Production.
workshopping to production. That's a different kind of road for a play than a play that. Although some people commission plays and they eventually don't do them.
Right. A lot of plays get
it
commissioned, never done.
doesn't really
Right.
work
Well,
out.
it's kind of nice that we just have the
But
week,
but
the
this
time.
but this is about the workshop. This is about the process of finding what this play might be for some other time as the play develops.
Right.
You know.
And that's Modern Minstrelsy, Depth Theatre Ensemble. And the program is called Breaking Ground. This is our second annual one. The first one we did, in fact, will be mounted. It's going to be mounted, not by us, but by another theater company.
Great.
They're mounting closely related keys by a local playwright named Wendy Graff. So hopefully this will also expose you as well.
Let's be good. Be happy.
Thank you, Kermit.
Thank you.